Welcome back to another Sunday walk video. It's looking a lot better today weather-wise than last week. It was hot and sweaty and I was getting eaten by mosquitoes. A little better today, a little cooler. But as for Bitcoin, what is going on? Well, we're a little better than last week. Last week, I remember it was the weekend when we started dropping. Actually, I think it was after my Sunday walk video or during my Sunday walk video. And then earlier last week, that's when we dropped to $49,000. Then we recovered to about $62,000 just a few days ago. Now, as I'm filming this, we're around $59,000. Seems like there's a little bit of a shakeout happening right now. So what are my thoughts overall about Bitcoin? Obviously, we had a sudden drop last week, right? In fact, from peak to the bottom to that 49,000, we had a 32% drop. And you know, when considering previous drops, that was actually quite large. In fact, I don't believe since the FTX crash of 2022, I don't believe we had another instance where we had a 30+% dip. Maybe we had, but I don't remember. We had a lot of like 20%, 25%, but 32%, quite drastic, right? Obviously, a lot of that had to do with longs, and a lot of longs got liquidated. We had several long squeezes. That had a lot to do with it. Also, there was just general fear, right, about recession. What happened out of Japan spooked everyone. Japan had the worst fall in like 50 years, and their stock market down like 13%. Taiwan had like same thing, like I forgot what they fell, like 11% or something. Asia was absolutely in free fall, and Europe joined in, US joined in, especially since we started getting bad economic data, jobs report, unemployment, both horrible, right? So we had a little bit of a scare last week. Did things get better? Not really. The only things that got better was markets came back up, but in terms of overall like direness of the situation, if you think about it, have things gotten better in Japan? No. Have things gotten better in US? No. Yes, markets recovered up a little bit, but overall, I mean, we're still in a bad situation. Japan is just in a really bad situation. They had their negative interest rate policy for 8 years. They realized it wasn't working. They had it implemented because they were afraid of deflation. But now they're forced to raise their rates. So with that, it's going to disrupt their exports because the yen is going to start gaining strength, especially against like the dollar. So that's going to affect their exports. Also, a lot of this cash, like the conversion, what do they call it? Cash carry or whatever the term is. Cash trade, you know, that's going to be affected because basically a lot of companies and probably governments, they bought a whole lot of, or not bought, they bought a whole lot of yen, or they basically borrowed a lot of yen, and they used that for whatever purpose to make money outside of Japan. And now it's not so cheap anymore, right? So now they got to convert back. Not only are they going to start paying interest, but also because the USD is losing value against the yen. So obviously you don't want that to happen. So that's why it did seem like last week there were massive sells everywhere around the world due to this, right? So did this situation get better? No. Japan may be getting worse. Even though their markets recovered it back up a little bit, does not mean anything's really been solved within a week. Obviously, nothing has been solved for a week, within a week. Same to the US. You know, when we had that nasty day, a lot of calls for Powell to do emergency meeting to do emergency cut. Man, I'm still itching all over from last week. But then all of a sudden that kind of went away when the markets kind of recovered a little bit. But did things get better in the US? No. Unemployment continues to go up. Jobs continue to go down. People are spending a lot less. You could see it. Home prices starting to come down. Car market, you guys know I love cars. A lot of cars on discount now. You could get a lot of cars under MSRP. The days of paying over MSRP are gone. And you're seeing cars being slashed, and sales reports are absolutely horrendous. So obviously the economy is slowing down. This is what Powell wanted, right? To kind of decrease inflation by making people poor. And it worked, except can we reverse this? Because if Powell can't, then of course we are really going to go into a deep recession, and no one wants that. So it's unfortunate that a rate cut wasn't made in July. This month, depending on how markets go, we'll see if more talks about emergency meeting, if that's going to come up again. It really depends on if the stock market this week is going to be good or bad. But yeah, so what's my point? My point is nothing has really changed in a week, right? Everything that we're hearing about is still very current, but unfortunately everything we're hearing are really bad. They're negative. These are not good news, right? So what's the solution? The solution is to opt out, basically. You opt out, or as much as you can, and you opt into something that you know is better. Something that isn't controlled by centralized entities. Something that isn't controlled by Fed governors or Fed chairs or central banks, right? And that is Bitcoin. You guys know this. You guys know this. I've said this plenty of times before. Bitcoin, the more you learn about, I've said this before too, but like prior years, I've studied, Bitcoin's movement according to halving event and all the on-chain metrics and the fundamentals. Those are all great, and they haven't changed, meaning that the fundamentals are still showing Bitcoin as strong as ever. Hash rate is back to an all-time high. Accumulation addresses continue to go up. Whale activity continue to go up. Tether printing continues to go up. So you look at like the fundamentals, what really makes Bitcoin so strong, they're all sky high. So Bitcoin is strong as ever, even though the price is not near all-time high. But Bitcoin is the only asset where the price trails the fundamentals, so to speak. But despite all this, what made my conviction in Bitcoin stronger, especially this cycle, is the fact that I started to pay attention to the macro factors, right? To what is going around the world. The more I hear about money, the more I hear about what's being done to try to control inflation, right, with economic policy, the more I realize everyone's kind of just like guessing. Everyone's so reactive. They're not really proactive. Seems like everyone's waiting for something to happen before doing something about it, right? And Wall Street is the same way. Wall Street's very reactive. But you know, if you're like running a central bank for a country, it shouldn't be like that, right? But then again, there's only so much Powell can do, because most of the irresponsible spending and printing and borrowing, which they are, you know, they're causing inflation, you know, that's out of Powell's hands. Like, so he's trying to like fix things, right? He's not actually the reason why we're in our mess. He's just trying to fix it. So I guess, you know, you can't really blame him, because he could only be reactionary. He can't be proactive. Proactiveness can only come from really our Congress, the government, right? They shouldn't be voting for the removal of our debt ceiling. We always have, I mean, they plan the budget, and the budget gets higher every single year. We have government shutdowns because we run out of money, so they were fed up with that, so then they decided to remove the debt ceiling. I mean, these are the things that cause us as a country to spiral out of control, at least in terms of debt and borrowing and printing and ultimately inflation, right? The decision to lock down everything 4 years ago and force people to sit at home and basically just, yeah, again, lock down everything. I mean, that caused us to increase our money supply by 40%. How long has the USD been around? And within a couple years, we increased the money supply of the USD by 40%. You can't tell me that doesn't scare you, right? That's the reason why inflation was so high. Not because of irresponsible spending by the consumers. It was just because the money supply increased by that much. Debts were forgiven, checks were handed out, people didn't have to go to work, right? The money came from somewhere, from good old Uncle Sam, right? So Powell can only do what he can. And you know, like I said about Japan and others, they have their own like weird policies. They do what they can, but ultimately every system is kind of effed up, right? It's all effed up. So that's why you've probably heard of many people say that our financial system is built on a house of cards. It really is. It's lucky that the USD is so strong against other currencies. If it's not, and we can no longer borrow money by selling a whole bunch of bonds, and the USD no longer is the reserve currency of the world, we better watch out. Our country's going to collapse if that day ever comes. So hopefully it doesn't, but it does seem like we're making the same mistakes as these other countries, right, that are now suffering from economic turmoil and hyperinflation. So bottom line is, hopefully that day doesn't come anytime soon, but we're starting to see things unravel, so to speak. And that's why we have Bitcoin. That's why we have Bitcoin. That's why I believe in Bitcoin so much. So today's dip to 58, 59 or whatever doesn't really affect me. But then again, I know some of you guys are like, well, George, you know, it doesn't affect you, but it affects some of us. You know, we have money in there. I get it. But when it comes to investing, you got to have patience. And if you truly understand what you're investing in, you're not just trying to make a quick buck or a quick flip. If you truly understand Bitcoin, you're going to be, you're just going to be holding and DCing forever. Like, there are so many that have come to understand Bitcoin in recent days, especially these well-known billionaires, right? but I think a lot of retail investors around the world have been pulled in within the last 4 years due to everything I've mentioned, right? So anyways, I think we'll have to see. If the markets continue to rally this week, you know, I think Bitcoin will do just fine short term. I think what happened today, this slight dip down to 58, could be just a temporary shakeout. We have seen that before a huge pump or move to the upside. You have a shakeout. You have whales that are trying to drive people out before that sudden pump upwards. I have a feeling that could be what it is. I looked around, there's really no new FUD, no scare right now. A lot of politics going on, right? But overall, there's really nothing to cause Bitcoin to come down, other than I think some market makers or manipulators are trying to scare people out for the next move, right? So we'll see. If this reoccurring fear about recession comes up this week and we see global markets tank, then yeah, I think it will definitely affect Bitcoin and crypto overall. But if we don't see any of that, we just have a normal week, silent week, or even a green week, then there's no reason to think that Bitcoin can't continue back up and do very well this week. I think the next, we hit 62,000. The next stop will be back to 63.7, which I thought we were going to hit, but we didn't. But obviously that's the next stop for Bitcoin. So let's see what happens this week. But overall, guys, nothing really new that I'm seeing. We got a little volatility, but just stay strong. Stay strong, stay focused. There's really nothing else you need to do. Well, maybe learn more about Bitcoin. I'm talking to more and more people that are asking me about it. You know, they don't understand why my conviction is so strong. But again, if you don't believe in anything else, you don't believe in a 4-year cycle, you don't believe in the growing fundamentals, you don't believe in a growing adoption, or why even presidential candidates and countries are talking about it, if you don't believe any of this, just go learn about money. Just go learn about how money is controlled by governments, right? And the more you learn about it, the more you're going to think, this is an absolute disaster. Any business that's run like a country would have been bankrupt a long time ago. And your faith and conviction in Bitcoin will become stronger. That's really it. All right, guys, smash the like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right, take care. Bye-bye.